make sure that you have covered all the bases. And also, if you're doing admin access, you need to use a secure utility like Secure Shell to connect over to the remote site. So when you're dealing with sensitive data, you need to, again, the important thing is use a secure channel over which you pass that data, store that data using secure methods such as encryption, and do not store sensitive data in a persistent cookie. When you're trying to manage sessions, because obviously you conduct a session with the server as a user, you need to secure the channel, again, using SSL or TLS. Limit the lifetime of the session. You don't want someone hijacking your session once you've actually left the session and the session is still persistent. So you need to implement timeouts on the sessions. And encrypt the authentication cookies. And make sure that the session information is not exposed to an outside party. Cryptography. Try not to develop your own cryptography libraries. There are plenty available to you already, such as the OpenSSL. And use the right kind of algorithm and key size and the key cycling period in a way that it matches your business model. For example, take your average session's length, and you need to make sure that that's the time frame for someone to crack that key. So you need to make sure that you don't do an overkill by using a very strong algorithm with a very strong key, and when you have very short session times. So you need to gauge for yourself, make an informed decision on what encryption algorithm you use, with what key size, and how frequently you recycle those keys. And keys need to be stored, again, in a very secure fashion. And parameter manipulation, dealing with parameter manipulation, basically, again, comes down to input sanitization, input validation. So the basic key here being, again, do not trust information that a user enters, and you can only trust client-side validation only so much. It's far secure to implement server-side validation. And when you get an exception message, you need to not enter any sensitive information a user can use to attack your system. For example, the server name or the directory path or the type of software that is being used or its version. And private data such as passwords should not be logged in exception reports. Auditing and logging is the final and important good practice to follow. So I think the key point here is you need to make sure that not everyone has access to the log files, so you need to store it in a secure way. And you need to regularly analyze your log files and make sure that you cover as much of the transactions that are occurring on the application through your logging and auditing system. And from our experience, what we see is that application development actually starts considering security somewhere down the line. So if you use system development lifecycle as opposed to an ad hoc method, you should actually be considering security in the envisioning stage of things, not during development or testing, because then it's quite far down the line. So what we encourage is actually incorporate security. When you're developing the specifications for your application, incorporate security requirements into those. And then make sure that it is addressed throughout the cycle. Even during feedback, you may have a security breach. You need to incorporate that back into your next version development or into your patch development. Another very important, I think, key point to, if you take away anything from this, is to appreciate OWASP, or Open Web Application Security Project. That actually provides a guide which you, if you're a developer, can use to make sure that you incorporate security, you address these vulnerabilities that are common, prevalent in web applications, and try to weed them out at the development stage itself. And the OWASP top 10 actually tells you what are as the latest top 10 vulnerabilities that are facing web applications. And they also make available Web Scarab, which is a proxy which you can use to do your own application vulnerability testing. So this is just something I took off the OWASP top 10 for 2010. And you can see in terms of the priority, the A1, A2, A3, and how that has changed from 2007. So you can gain an appreciation for the fact that vulnerabilities and their corresponding threats don't stay static. So you need to be up to date. What are the vulnerabilities that matter right now? So if you are still back in 2007 and you're addressing A1, you may be just wasting your effort and your resources, whereas you should be focusing on injection, you'll be focusing on cross-site scripting. So you need to keep abreast of what's developing in the OWASP world. And I think you will be far better investing your resources into building secure applications. So to summarize, I just made 2 notes. In terms of performing, am I okay for time? In performing hardening of your system, you can actually use the Center for Internet Security or CIS benchmarks. There are a series of PDFs which you can actually download and use for yourself to, for example, see how secure your Oracle database is, or your DB2 database is, or your operating system like Linux, or even the Apache web server. So you can use these recommendations from CIS, just type CIS, Center for Internet Security, and you can basically just enter some information and download those relevant documents to perform your own benchmarking. And they have an automated auditing tool, but you have to become a member to get that, and it's quite costly. So if you see a point in it, you can go ahead and get it. And the second point is you also need to do static code review. Proxies can only do so much. They tell you from an external point of view, this is the vulnerabilities that you face. But by doing a static code review, you can actually see where in the coding that there can be vulnerabilities. And I have actually used a framework called YASCA, YASCA, for just toyed around with it, and it throws you out vulnerabilities in terms of, for example, SQL injection vulnerabilities, cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. So the important thing is automated tools are good, they save you a lot of time, but always do manual verification, because there can be quite a few false positives thrown out by these tools. So don't 100% trust what an automated application or tool gives you. So to summarize, web applications are becoming really popular, and especially thanks to cloud computing, I can see it going to become a key part of our lives. It's going to increase our productivity, keep us connected more and more, and free us up to use any platform that we choose. And web applications are actually going to be a key component of this, because thin clients are going to be back in vogue. But if we design our applications poorly, we are going to be in for a hard time, and because there are going to be a lot more vulnerabilities and a lot more people trying to exploit those. So when you're developing applications, try to use frameworks such as the system development lifecycle and incorporate security into that process, and use guides such as the OWASP guide to help you realize what are the key areas that you need to address when developing the applications, and perform regular security testing on your applications. Because your application state changes, the technology out there changes, what's available to the attacker changes. So you need to keep testing regularly. And be mindful of the legislative requirements that are tied in with web applications. As the speaker before me mentioned, soon as we get a Data Protection Act operational in Sri Lanka, you will, whether you be a government organization or a private organization, if you're a private sector organization, you would also have regulatory compliance set forth by your industry. So you need to be mindful of those requirements as well. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I thank you very much for your time. And
users, perhaps, right?
Yes.
The frameworks you talked about?
Yes, that's true. Yes, from a user perspective, in fact, that is becoming an issue. If I can go slightly off topic, Charles mentioned about the social aspect of using web services. Now, we actually have lately seen quite an increase in the number of cases that involve Facebook. And in fact, very rightly, most of these victims are school-going children. And for various reasons, from either being someone who has been romantically let down, to someone who has formed a jealousy over something or some professional jealousy, people start misusing Facebook. One of the things that happen, common things that happens is Facebook accounts are hijacked and money is demanded to return the account to the person. Malicious video links are posted on walls and people are directed to malware servers and they get infected. So these are some of the user-oriented issues that come up, and we have actually started a campaign to educate school children on how to securely use Facebook. We are going to keep it running because technology keeps evolving, and we're just going to keep it running, and we're going to work on a train the trainer model. So we'll be training the teachers who will in turn address the school children, and we will hopefully see a decline in the number of incidents, Facebook incidents in the country. So that's not all. I mean, we get credit card theft cases happening. Credit card skimming is a very prevalent issue. And so awareness is going to be a key component in this. In fact, we have recognized that. We have set up coordinating bodies for various setting up coordinating bodies to regularly keep in touch with industry sectors and to notify them of up and coming vulnerabilities and good practices. So, and also we rely on the providers. For example, if it be a telecom operator, for them to communicate because they have a better access to their user community, we pass that information on to the operators to disseminate to their user community. I believe that's the most effective way of keeping people informed.
Thank you, Lakshan. Let's give a round of applause for Lakshan.
Thank you.